I never thought I'd die at 12 years old, but there I was, lying in a hospital bed, feeling weaker by the minute. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils, and the rhythmic beeping of machines echoed in the small room. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I died, met Jesus, and learned about the end of the world. It all started with a simple headache. At first, my parents thought it was just stress from school or maybe too much screen time. But as the days went by, the pain got worse, and I started feeling tired all the time. My mom took me to our family doctor, who ran some tests. The results came back, and suddenly everything changed. The doctor said I had a rare disease. I couldn't pronounce the name, but I could see the worry in my parents' eyes. We went from doctor to doctor, trying everything they suggested. Nothing worked. With each passing day, I felt myself getting weaker. The headaches became unbearable, and soon I couldn't even get out of bed. That's how I ended up in the hospital. The doctors tried everything they could, but nothing seemed to help. I could hear them talking in hushed tones outside my room, using words like terminal and palliative care. I didn't know exactly what those words meant, but I knew they weren't good. My parents were always by my side, holding my hands and trying to stay strong for me. But I could see the pain in their eyes, the way they'd turn away to wipe their tears when they thought I wasn't looking. I wanted to tell them not to be sad, that I wasn't afraid, but I couldn't find the strength to speak. As I lay there, I thought about all the things I'd never get to do. I'd never go to high school, never have my first kiss, never get married or have kids. It seemed so unfair. Why was this happening to me? What had I done to deserve this? I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, I was floating above my body. It was the strangest sensation. I could see myself lying in the hospital bed, pale and still. My parents were there, holding my hands and crying. The doctors were rushing around trying to revive me. I wanted to tell them I was okay, that they didn't need to worry, but they couldn't hear me. Then I saw it. A bright light appeared in the corner of the room. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The light got bigger and brighter, and I felt drawn to it. As I got closer, I felt warm and happy. All my worries and fears melted away. The pain that had been my constant companion for months was gone. I felt lighter than air, free from the constraints of my sick body. I floated into the light, and everything changed. Suddenly, I found myself in a beautiful garden. The colors were more vibrant than anything I'd ever seen on earth. The grass was the greenest green, soft and lush beneath my feet. Flowers of every color imaginable bloomed all around me, their sweet fragrance filling the air. Some of the colors I saw I'd never even seen before. They were beyond description. The air smelled sweet, like a mix of flowers and freshly baked bread. It was the most comforting scent I'd ever experienced. I could hear soft music playing in the background, like 1,000 angels singing in perfect harmony. The music made me feel peaceful and loved in a way I'd never felt before. I knew I was in a special place, somewhere beyond the world I'd known. As I looked around in wonder, I saw a man walking towards me. He was wearing a white robe that seemed to glow with its own inner light. His face was kind, with eyes that sparkled with love and wisdom. I knew right away that this was Jesus. I'd seen pictures of him in church and in my children's Bible, but seeing him for real was different. He was more real, more alive than anything I'd ever known. Jesus smiled at me, and his whole face lit up. "Welcome, my child," he said, his voice gentle and warm. "I've been waiting for you." His words made me feel safe and happy in a way I couldn't explain. I wanted to hug him, and as soon as the thought crossed my mind, I found myself in his arms. It was the best hug ever. It was the best hug ever, like all the love in the world was wrapped around me. I felt completely safe and at peace. Jesus took my hand, and we started walking through the garden. Each step made me feel stronger and healthier. It was as if all the sickness and pain I had experienced on earth was being washed away with every moment I spent in this heavenly place. As we walked, we came to a big tree with golden fruit hanging from its branches. The fruit seemed to glow with an inner light, and I felt drawn to it. Jesus picked one and gave it to me. "Eat," he said, his eyes twinkling. "This is the fruit of life." I took a bite, and it was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. It was sweet and juicy, with a flavor that seemed to change with every bite. As I ate, I felt energy coursing through me. I felt more alive than I ever had, even before I got sick. As we continued our walk, I remembered all the questions I had about heaven and God. I had always been curious, and now I was face to face with Jesus himself. I wanted to know everything. "Jesus," I said, looking up at him, "can I ask you some questions?" He smiled down at me and nodded. "Of course, my child. What would you like to know?" I thought for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but one question stood out above all others. It was something I'd heard adults talking about, something that had always scared me a little. "When will the world end?" I asked, my voice small but curious. Jesus looked at me with kind eyes, his expression thoughtful. "That's a big question," he said. "It's not something to be afraid of, but something to look forward to. It means I'll be coming back to earth to make everything right." I nodded, trying to understand. It was a lot to take in. "But how will we know it's happening?" I pressed, eager to learn more. Jesus smiled patiently. "There will be signs," he explained. "People will hear about wars and natural disasters. Many will turn away from God. But those who love God should not be afraid. They should be ready and keep doing good things." I considered this for a moment. It sounded both scary and exciting. "What happens after the world ends?" I asked, my curiosity growing with each answer. "After that," Jesus said, his voice filled with joy, "there will be a new heaven and a new earth. All the bad things will be gone. There will be no more sadness, pain, or death. Everyone who loves God will live with him forever." I thought about that for a while. It sounded amazing, like the happy ending in a fairy tale, but real. Yet I still had more questions. "What about the people who don't believe in God?" I asked, thinking of some of my friends at school who had never been to church. Jesus looked sad for a moment, his eyes filled with compassion. "God loves everyone and wants everyone to be with him," he explained gently. "But he also gives people the choice to love him back. Those who choose not to be with God will be separated from him. That's why it's important to tell others about God's love while there's still time." I nodded, feeling the weight of what Jesus was saying. It made me think about how I could share God's love with my friends when I got back. "So, what should we do while we're waiting for the world to end?" I asked, eager to know how I could make a difference. Jesus smiled brightly, his whole face lighting up. "Live your life with love," he said. "Love God with all your heart and love others as you love yourself. Help people who are in need. Forgive those who hurt you. Pray and read the Bible to know God better. And always remember that I am with you, even when you can't see me." As we walked some more through the beautiful garden, I saw other people there too. They all looked happy and peaceful. Some were singing, others were talking and laughing. It felt like one big, happy family reunion. As we walked, I saw a big book on a golden stand. It was the biggest book I'd ever seen, its cover adorned with precious gems that sparkled in the heavenly light. "What's that?" I asked, pointing to the enormous book. "That's the book of life," Jesus explained. "It has the names of all the people who love God and follow him." I was curious and a little nervous. "Is my name in there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jesus smiled and nodded. "Yes, it is," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "And so are the names of many others, but there's still room for more." We kept walking and soon came to a crystal-clear river. The water sparkled like diamonds, reflecting the heavenly light in a dazzling display. "This is the river of life," Jesus said. "Its water gives life to everything in heaven." I bent down and touched the water. It felt cool and refreshing against my skin. When I stood up, I felt even stronger and happier than before, if that was even possible. As we walked along the river, I saw many animals. There were lions playing with lambs and eagles soaring in the sky. None of the animals seemed scared or hungry. They all looked peaceful and content. In heaven, Jesus explained, all of creation lives in harmony. There's no fighting or hurting each other here. We came to a big, beautiful city. The walls were made of precious stones that glittered in the light, and the streets were paved with gold. But this gold was different. It was clear like glass. I could see my reflection in it as we walked. This is the New Jerusalem, Jesus said. It's where God lives with his people. The city was full of light. There was no sun or moon that I could see, but everything was bright and clear. Jesus explained that God's glory gives light to the whole city. As we walked through the city, I saw many people I recognized from Bible stories. There was Moses with his long beard, David with his harp, and Mary with her gentle smile. They all smiled and waved at me as we passed. I felt so happy to be among them, like I was part of a grand story that had been unfolding since the beginning of time. We came to a big throne in the center of the city. It was more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen, shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within. This is God's throne, Jesus said. From here, he rules with love and justice. I looked at the throne in awe. I could feel God's presence all around me. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. I felt completely loved and accepted, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. As we stood there, I heard voices singing. It was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. Angels and people were praising God together, their voices blending in perfect harmony. The sound filled me with joy, and I wanted to join in. But then Jesus looked at me with a hint of sadness in his eyes. "It's almost time for you to go back," he said gently. I felt my heart sink. I didn't want to leave this wonderful place. "Do I have to?" I asked, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. Jesus nodded. "Yes, my child, you still have work to do on earth. People need to hear about God's love. You can tell them what you've seen here." I understood, but I was still a little scared. "Will it hurt to go back?" I asked, remembering the pain I had been in before. Jesus hugged me again, his embrace full of comfort and reassurance. "No, it won't hurt," he said, "and remember, I'll always be with you, even when you can't see me." He took my hand and we started walking back through the garden. As we walked, Jesus gave me one last piece of advice. "Remember," he said, his voice serious but kind, "no one knows when the world will end, but that's not the most important thing. What's important is how you live each day. Love God, love others, and be ready for when I come back." I nodded, feeling both sad to leave and excited to share what I'd learned. As we got closer to the bright light that had brought me here, Jesus stopped and looked at me. "Are you ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready," I said, trying to sound brave. Jesus smiled and hugged me one last time. "Go with my blessing," he said, "and remember, I love you always." With that, I felt myself floating back through the light. Everything got blurry for a moment, and then I opened my eyes. I was back in my body in the hospital bed. My parents were still there, looking worried and exhausted. I took a deep breath, and they gasped. The doctors rushed over, looking surprised and happy. My parents hugged me, crying tears of joy. I could feel their relief and happiness washing over me. "Sarah, oh Sarah," my mom sobbed, holding me tight. "We thought we'd lost you." My dad was crying too, something I'd never seen before. He stroked my hair gently, as if afraid I might disappear again. "It's a miracle," he kept saying, his voice choked with emotion. The doctors were amazed. They ran tests and couldn't explain what had happened. My disease was gone, vanished without a trace. They called it a spontaneous remission, but I knew the truth. I had been healed in heaven. As the days passed and I grew stronger, I told my parents about my experience. At first, they were skeptical, thinking it was just a dream or hallucination. But as I described details about heaven and shared the things Jesus had told me, they began to believe. "It was so real, Mom," I said one evening as we sat in my hospital room. "I can still smell the flowers and hear the music, and Jesus, he was so kind and loving." My mom squeezed my hand. "I believe you, sweetie. God works in mysterious ways. My dad nodded, his eyes misty. We're just so grateful to have you back with us. As I recovered, I couldn't stop thinking about what Jesus had said about the end of the world. It wasn't something to fear, but something to prepare for. I knew I had to share this message with others. When I was finally well enough to go back to school, I saw everything differently. The world seemed brighter somehow, more alive. I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, the kindness in a stranger's smile, the beauty of a rainy day. I started talking to my friends about God and what I'd experienced. Some of them were interested, while others thought I was crazy, but I didn't mind. I remembered what Jesus had said about telling others about God's love while there was still time. "You really believe all that stuff?" my best friend Emma asked one day at lunch. I nodded, taking a bite of my apple. "I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. I was there, Emma. I saw it all." She looked thoughtful. "So what happens to people who don't believe in God?" I remembered Jesus' sad expression when I'd asked him the same question. "God loves everyone," I explained. "He wants everyone to be with him, but he gives us a choice. That's why it's so important to share his love with others." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I've never really thought about God before," she admitted, "but the way you talk about him, it makes me want to know more." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my heart. This was exactly what Jesus had meant about sharing his love. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself changing. I was more patient, more kind. I tried to see the good in everyone, even the kids at school who used to bully me. I remembered the harmony I'd seen in heaven and tried to bring a little bit of that to earth. I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, remembering the peaceful animals I'd seen in heaven. I joined the church youth group and helped with community service projects. Every chance I got, I told people about God's love and the importance of being ready for Jesus' return. One day, as I was helping serve food at a homeless shelter, an old man looked at me with wise, kind eyes. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he asked. I was surprised. "Seen what?" I asked. He smiled. "The other side, heaven. I can see it in your eyes. You've been there." I nodded, amazed. "How did you know?" He chuckled. "I've been there too, many years ago. It changes you, doesn't it? Makes you see the world differently." We talked for hours that day. He shared his own near-death experience, and we compared notes about heaven. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone, that others had seen what I had seen. As I grew older, I never forgot my experience or the message Jesus had given me. I became a counselor, helping people through difficult times and sharing God's love with them. I wrote books about my experience, hoping to reach even more people with the message of hope and love. Sometimes late at night, I would look up at the stars and remember the beauty of heaven. I'd think about Jesus' words about the end of the world and wonder when it would happen. But I wasn't afraid. Instead, I felt a sense of anticipation, knowing that one day I'd see that beautiful garden again. Years passed, and I watched the world change. There were wars and natural disasters, just as Jesus had said there would be. I saw many people turn away from God, consumed by materialism and self-interest, but I also saw incredible acts of kindness and love, people helping each other in times of crisis, strangers becoming heroes. I got married to a wonderful man who shared my faith and my mission to spread God's love. We had children of our own, and I told them about my experience in heaven. I taught them to live each day with love and purpose, always ready for Jesus' return. One day, when I was in my 50s, I received a letter from a woman I'd never met. She wrote that she had read my book about my near-death experience, and it had changed her life. "I was on the brink of giving up," she wrote. "I didn't see any purpose in life, but when I read about your experience, about God's love and the beauty of heaven, it gave me hope. I've found my faith again, and I'm living each day trying to share God's love with others. Thank you for sharing your story." Letters like this reminded me why Jesus had sent me back. Each person who found hope or faith because of my experience was a precious soul, loved by God. As I grew older, I began to notice signs that made me wonder if the end times were approaching. There were more natural disasters than ever before. Wars and conflicts seemed to be everywhere, and many people were abandoning their faith. But I remembered Jesus' words, "No one knows when the world will end," but that's not the most important thing. What's important is how you live each day. So I continued to live each day with love and purpose. I volunteered at hospitals, sharing comfort and hope with the sick. I spoke at churches and conferences, telling my story and encouraging others to live with faith and love. I tried to be a light in the darkness, just as Jesus had been a light to me. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt a familiar warmth and peace wash over me. I opened my eyes and saw a soft light filling the room. For a moment I thought I was back in heaven. Then I heard Jesus' voice, as clear and loving as it had been all those years ago. "Well done, my faithful servant," he said. "You have shared my love and kept the faith. Are you ready to come home?" I felt a joy beyond words. "Yes, Lord," I whispered, "I'm ready." As I felt myself leaving my earthly body behind, I wasn't afraid. I knew I was going home, back to that beautiful garden where I had first met Jesus, but this time I wouldn't have to leave. As I entered the light, I saw Jesus waiting for me, his arms open wide. Behind him, I could see all the people whose lives I had touched, the friends I had told about God, the strangers I had helped, even the woman who had written me the letter. They were all there, smiling and welcoming me home. I realized then that this was what it was all about, not just preparing for the end of the world, but living each day in a way that brought more of heaven to earth. By sharing God's love, we create little pieces of heaven right here, right now. As Jesus embraced me, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and joy. I was home at last, and I knew that the real adventure was just beginning. Looking back on my life from this heavenly perspective, I could see how every experience, every choice, every person I'd met had been part of God's plan. Even the illness that had led to my near-death experience as a child had served a greater purpose, setting me on a path to share God's love with others. I realized that the end of the world isn't something to be feared, but rather the beginning of something beautiful beyond imagination. It's not about destruction, but about renewal and reunion with our Creator. As I joined the heavenly chorus, singing praises to God, I felt grateful for every moment of my earthly life. I was thankful for the opportunity to have shared God's love, to have made a difference in people's lives, and to have lived each day in anticipation of this moment. And now, as I stand here in the eternal presence of God, I want to share this message with you, whoever you are, reading my story, whether you're young or old, whether you believe in God or not, whether you're facing challenges or enjoying life's blessings. I want you to know that you are loved beyond measure. The end of the world, whenever it may come, is not something to fear. It's a promise of renewal, of justice, of love triumphant, but you don't have to wait for the end to experience a piece of heaven. You can bring a bit of heaven to earth every day through your actions, your words, and your love. Remember what Jesus told me. Live your life with love. Love God with all your heart and love others as you love yourself. Help people who are in need. Forgive those who hurt you. These aren't just nice words. They're a blueprint for a life well lived, a life that makes a difference. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every moment of forgiveness, these are the things that truly matter. They ripple out into the world, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. Don't worry about when the world will end. Instead, focus on how you can make the world a better place while you're in it. Share love generously, forgive freely, help others whenever you can. These are the things that will matter when all is said and done. And if you're struggling, if life seems dark and hopeless, remember that you are not alone. God's love is with you, even when you can't feel it. There is hope, even in the darkest times. I know because I've been there, in the depths of illness, facing death. But I also know the joy and peace that comes from knowing God's love. If my story has touched you in any way, I encourage you to open your heart to the possibility of God's love. Seek Him out, talk to Him, read His Word. You might be surprised by what you find. And remember, just as Jesus told me, He is always with you even when you can't see him. He loves you more than you can imagine, and he has a purpose for your life. As I conclude my story, I want to leave you with this thought. Heaven is real, and it's more beautiful than we can imagine, but we don't have to wait until we die to experience a taste of it. We can create little pieces of heaven right here on earth through our love, our kindness, and our faith. So live each day as if it could be your last, not in fear but in love. Be ready for Jesus' return, not by withdrawing from the world, but by engaging with it fully, spreading love and hope wherever you go. And who knows, maybe one day we'll meet in that beautiful garden. Until then, keep the faith, spread the love, and never forget that you are deeply, eternally loved. As I look around at the wonders of heaven, at the faces of loved ones reunited, at the joy and peace that permeates every corner of this place, I'm filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the life I lived, for the people I loved, for the experiences I had, both good and bad, because all of it, every moment, led me here. And as I joined the heavenly chorus once more, singing praises to the God who loves us all so deeply, I send out a prayer for you, dear reader. May you find the peace and purpose that I found. May you know the love that transformed my life. And may you too one day experience the indescribable joy of coming home to heaven. Until then, live well, love deeply, and always keep your eyes on the horizon, ready for the day when heaven and earth become one. For in the end, that's what it's all about. Not the end of the world, but the beginning of eternity with our loving Creator. To be honest, knowing only about the end of the world is not enough. To understand the whole truth, you have to watch about a woman who asked Jesus why we exist. Click the video on your screen now to hear this shocking story, and we'll see you in the next video.